When I was 10 years old and I got my first chronic illness, which was psoriasis, I ended up getting it from the tip of my foot to the tip of my head. So it covered like 98% of my body.
Oh my goodness.
It ended up, as you had mentioned earlier, going into my joints and creating psoriatic arthritis about a decade after my psoriasis diagnosis. So it was very debilitating. I lived with the psoriasis like that for about 17 years. It would itch like chicken pox. I would be in school and bleed through my jeans because I would just be scratching.
Because it's so itchy.
And then I would flake like you do when you have dandruff, but it was all over my body. So I was really looking for somebody to tell me, how do I heal?
Nobody talks about it. Nobody really knows.
Nobody really knows. And it perpetuates this deep feeling of isolation.
And almost shame.
So much shame because you feel like you're the only person. And, little did I know there's hundreds of millions of us. The National Health Council says there's over 133 million Americans that have a chronic illness.
So for somebody kind of healing through, what advice do you have for them to kind of start their own healing journey?
Honestly,
hey loves, do me a quick favor and hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are tuning into this. It helps grow the show more than you know. Thank you so much again and enjoy.
I love your energy and I love your spunkiness. And I see that, no wonder you're a TV show personality host because you just radiate love and light.
Thank you.
But I also know behind that is a story and a journey of maybe there's a time where that wasn't the case. So maybe we can start there and unpack that.
That's such a beautiful way of saying that because it's so true. I feel like throughout my life, it's been so easy for people to see the light and the bubbly personality, but a lot of times they don't know it's because I've been through so much darkness in my life, and I know a lot of people can relate to that. I am not alone or special in that way, but my journey really started when I was 10 years old and I got my first chronic illness, which was psoriasis.
Okay.
And I have to say it probably even started a little bit before that because I am, Indian, and I grew up in a home with so much love, but a lot of challenges just in the sense that my parents, I was kind of an alien to them.
You're an alien.
Total alien, which I'm sure you can relate to.
Oh, yes. I'm an alien, too.
Yes.
I don't say the black
child.
sheep. I say, rainbow sheep.
Yeah,
We say rainbow sheep.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love them and have to steal that.
Yes.
But yeah, I was definitely left of center. They were like, we just want you to go in this direction. And I was like,
only this direction, please.
Only this direction. Yeah. But I was like, why? What's on this side? Like, I literally don't want to listen to anything that you're saying. I just want to follow my heart. And that caused a lot of pain, a lot of challenges in my life. And then shortly after that sort of was coming to a head, I got my first chronic illness. So I always think about the correlation between the emotional stress that I was going through and how my body reacted and responded. And my psoriasis, although millions of people have psoriasis, it's a very common skin condition compared to a lot of other skin diseases. Yeah. But I ended up getting it from the tip of my foot to the tip of my head. So it covered like 98% of my body.
Oh my goodness.
It ended up, as you had mentioned earlier, going into my joints and creating psoriatic arthritis about a decade after my psoriasis diagnosis. So it was very debilitating. I lived with the psoriasis like that for about 17 years. And
17 years.
Yeah.
Because I've seen some of the photos that you've posted on Instagram.
From when it was really bad, yeah.
Right, the full red patches and things like that.
Yeah, scales and
oh wow.
Yeah, it would itch like chicken pox. I would be in school and bleed through my jeans because I would just be scratching. And
it's so itchy.
It's so itchy, and then I would flake like you do when you have dandruff, but it was all over my body. And so, people look at me now and they would never think that, but it was my reality for decades, and it shaped every single thing about the way that I am, for sure. Yeah.
So for somebody kind of healing through or maybe figuring out or going through the process of healing themselves through something that they're going through and listening to you, what advice do you have for them to kind of start their own healing journey? Because I'm sure that set you off on a, I need to find out what is going on with me. How was that journey for you?
Yeah, it's not over. I will say that. And I think that's actually a very comforting thing for me, because I think we lose ourselves in the ambition to heal and the attachment to heal and just feeling like there's no other alternative. If my body doesn't do the exact thing that I need it to do and that I want it to do in the exact moment that I need and want it to do it, that it's not okay. And I think that that's the opposite message that I want to share with my body. I want my body to always know that it is always okay and that we are going to be on this journey together. So for me, it's been a lot of emotional work. People always ask about, the work that I'm doing now, and I'm not set out to tell someone, oh, take this supplement or take this medicine or whatever the thing might be, and this is what's going to heal you. I believe it's a spiritual and emotional conversation that we need to be having. And the other stuff, there's experts for that, and there's ups and downs you're probably going to have to go through to figure out what's right for you. But if you don't get to the root cause of what the, disconnection in your system is, I don't think any of that other stuff is really going to help in the ways that we hope it will. Yeah. And even if it helps for a little bit of time, I think it will eventually erupt or come to the surface again in terms of the symptoms that someone's having. So for me, it's looked like I have a very strong relationship with God. I'm very spiritual. Even sitting here doing this interview, I'm thinking about God the whole time. I'm thinking, it makes me emotional even just to think about it and say it out loud. But it's, what can I say? Who can I talk to when I'm talking about this that is going to actually make a difference in even one person's life? How can I show up as my best, most true self so that I can be a vessel for something so much greater than me? So I think figuring out what that is for you, I think is very important. I don't think it's as cool as it, I'd like it to be, to talk about God. And I think a lot of people don't talk about it, but whatever that is for you, some people it's nature. Right. And that's their God. And I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Some people it's yoga.
Yes.
Or CrossFit.
For sure. Yeah. Some
walking.
Movement, channeling that greater purpose, that greater relationship in your life. And then also understanding the nuances of my emotional tapestry. Why was I so hurt by certain things? Why did I feel like I needed to hold on to hurt? What was it about me? Yes, you can look at the things that other people have done to you in your life, sure. Right. But what is my role in everything? How am I living the life that is perpetuating dis-ease or, perpetuating harm in my own life? And I think the thing that has been challenging in talking about this, it's almost like a little bit of a new way that I've started talking about it, where I am saying we need to really go within and not bypass that. But because you've been in the wellness industry for so long, like, it's a tricky thing to talk about, because when I started in the wellness industry 14 years ago, I was learning about The Secret. I was learning about affirmations. Sure. I was learning about all these things. And I felt it was very weaponized, actually. I felt it was very harmful. I would go home from a lecture with a spunky, beautiful woman who was telling me what to do and telling me things like that and saying all amazing. And they weren't lying, right? But it was either you're thinking good thoughts and your life works, or you're destroying everything.
Right. Or you're going to, you're going to the shitter because you had a bad thought in your mind.
And that was very harmful. I was very naive. I was also very desperate. I was in a lot of physical and emotional pain. So I was really looking for somebody to tell me, how do I heal? How do I fix this? Yeah. And that was actually not the message that I wish I had gotten. I wish someone had said, there's grace that's needed. There's time, there's kindness, there's compassion for yourself and for others. And sure, those positive thoughts and those affirmations and things are beautiful support systems.
They have a time and a place.
They have a time and a place.
Well, and I think what I'm hearing from you in sharing this, and obviously a lot of the emotional experts that we've had on the Brave table around, the processes of how disease manifests through our body, right? With unresolved traumas or unresolved emotions, which I love that you're getting into this. Now, what I'm hearing is like just the acceptance of, I have this. I can't change it. Yes, I can do all of the things, but I got to be okay with it.
I mean, I think that's the first step. I think when I started my company, Chronicon, the first step was it is so liberating to just sit next to somebody who has a chronic illness too and know I'm not alone. And for us to both be like, oh, I was in a flare last week and I had to cancel all my plans and I wasn't able to get anywhere except for my 5 doctor's appointments that I had. And I got, I was on the phone with the health insurance for 3 hours and I had to cancel a meeting. Like all these like very real things that happen.
That you don't really...
That no one talks about.
That nobody talks about. Nobody really knows.
Nobody really knows. And it perpetuates this deep feeling of isolation and
almost shame.
So much shame because you feel like you're the only person. And, little did I know before I started Chronicon that there's hundreds of millions of us. The National Health Council says there's over 133 million Americans that have a chronic illness. And that was a number that we got in 2019 before the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
Okay? It has been years. They have not updated that number. And that doesn't include millions of marginalized folks who are in populations that can't afford care, folks who don't have the support systems in their family to even get to the doctor's office, there's so many nuances to that number, and it's still so large, right? So that was the first step, is to say, there is liberation here that can happen if I just say, I'm not alone. I am not, it's not because there's something wrong with me that this is happening to my body or that I've brought this upon myself. But then the next step, which I am emerging out of and really working through right now for myself, because I actually got a third chronic illness. In 2021, I was diagnosed with a rare neuromuscular disease that was triggered because of a bad case of COVID. And so that pushed me to be like, wait a second, I'm doing all the positive things. I'm taking good care of myself. So I thought I'm doing so much. And yet my body is still leaning towards disease over and over and over and over again. And in very significant ways, right? So that sort of led me to say, okay, what is this deeper layer? And what are the stories? What are the ways that I am attached to being sick? What are the ways that I believe on some level that being sick is the only way I will be loved or cared for? It's a pretty vulnerable thing to say.
It's a very vulnerable thing.
Right?
To go from, well, it's almost kind of, taking full agency of, well, what message does this have for me?
Yeah. And it's such a fine line, right? Because I'm not sitting here saying, oh, I am like so terrible that I caused this illness and that's why I need to look at this. I'm just looking at what parts, as you said, agency, that's such a great word. Like, how can I feel empowered in this experience? And if you look at it and you say, no, there's absolutely no ways in which I feel connected to this, that's different. But it was very clear to me once I started doing this work. I started working on my nervous system and I started doing work on another layer that I think I was just so sick, like physically, I was just so ready for.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. And how has that changed, like, your relationship with chronic disease? And how, like, have you noticed a difference internally, externally?
Oh my God, yes. I feel like I'm a completely different person than the day that I got diagnosed with my last chronic illness, because I was just ready for something that I didn't know how to have access to. And to me, disease has always been a portal to something greater. And I don't want to have to get sick to go there every time. And hopefully I don't have to continue having that cycle and that experience. But I do think that it's an opportunity for something greater. So yeah, I even think my work has shifted a lot.
Tell us more about that, because you founded Chronicon.
Yeah.
Which is also this conference that's put on by you, your company, your foundation, every year. How many years has it been
Well,
running?
we had the pandemic in between. So we actually launched an app, which we still have, that's a global community, which is great. So we have workshops every week and content every day on the app. So we've done 2 live conferences.
Amazing. Congrats.
And thank you. And there's been like hundreds of people and dozens of brands, and people fly in from all over the world to attend, which has been just so humbling and amazing. But yeah, it's shifted my relationship to the work, because I don't want us to all be in the disease paradigm together, right? It's like we're coming to this conference because we all have this thing in common. But what we actually do in the conference and even in the app, we don't really focus on the fact that this person has a disease. We focus on the whole person. We focus on the dreams. We focus on how are they setting boundaries in their life? How are they allowing relationships into their life? What do those things look like? Because the more they feel confident and the more they know themselves and feel like they have that agency and they feel empowered, every single thing in their life changes.
So they're not like a victim anymore of their circumstance. They're the victor.
Exactly. They're not a victim. And, you know, it's really a nuanced conversation, as I keep saying, because when your body is breaking down and you're dealing with MS and you're dealing with lupus and you're dealing with horrible, I mean, I've been swollen for like a year and a half because I started taking steroids because of this disease that I got, because I mean, it was horrendous and really challenging. I had to move home with my parents for 6 months because I couldn't be alone. And that was real, right? And there's still something in me that has agency, that has power, that has brilliance, that has beauty, that is so much greater than I am. You know, so it's more about teaching people that and to how to figure out what that is for them.
Right. That you're, well, I mean, you know, kind of the way I see it and hear about it is you're not going to just sit in the suck.
Yeah.
Right. I wrote the book, That Suck Now What? And I feel like a lot of times we're using it as a humorous way, but it's true. You're going to feel the suck. You're going to acknowledge the suck.
Yeah.
It sucks.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to live here.
Yeah. And I don't think that I think it's been like this trajectory of the chronic illness conversation has been the first part, which is what I shared of like, doesn't exist. Like when I first started the wellness world, people used to tell me that all the time. You're not sick. It doesn't exist.
So they're bypassing and they're gaslighting you.
Totally.
Right.
Totally. And that was harmful.
And that is harmful.
Very harmful.
Because I can only imagine you coming to like an event, a personal growth event, or a weekend or a retreat, and somebody's like, you're thinking the wrong thoughts.
Yes.
Stop thinking bad thoughts.
Yes. You're thinking, literally someone
I'm so sorry.
leapt across the table at a conference once and said, you're not sick. When I had just finished, and I am not a crier, like I cry about Chronicon literally every day because I'm so moved to tears, but I'm not a crier when I'm upset. That's like usually not where I go to. But I had been in this event and I had walked to the event and I was crying because I had a cyst that had developed because of a medication that I was taking, and it was so painful. And I was just done by the time I got there. And so I was crying and telling like 2-3 friends that I was so upset. And one of the people leapt across the table and was like, you're not sick. This is not happening to you. You need to stop thinking those things. And bless her. I mean, we've grown since then, but you know, and we were young, and you know, people learn and all of that. It's not to condemn her, but that was the mentality.
Well, sure, because I think that when, you know, in the spiritual world, or you watch The Secret, you think, okay, if I think a bad thought, oh my gosh, it's going to happen. It's going to come to like, I'm going to manifest it.
Yeah.
And so here's the deal. You have your agency as well. Yeah. And I think the issue with that is that you bypass even your emotions of feeling sad or things suck or even your anger, and you're just suppressing them down.
Yeah.
Because you're like, nope, everything is okay. And if folks have taken my quiz, how do you handle stressful moments when you are feeling charged up?
Yeah.
That person that I'm talking about is the person that constantly bypasses their emotions. They're like, oh, it could have been worse.
Yep.
Oh, it's everything's okay, actually. You know, the L, who's that L from Legally Blonde?
Oh, yeah.
Where she's like, oh my goodness, everything's fine. It could have been worse.
Yeah.
And no, it's actually like, no, I actually have this thing and it actually is not okay. It actually sucks.
And there's wisdom in that, right? We're not talking about marinating in it for the sake of marinating in it or to be a victim or whatever it might be. But maybe you spend a day fully in your victimhood and then you're like,
I call it the pity party of one.
Great.
Yeah, pity party of one.
Do it. I mean, I have friends that are going through such hard, challenging, big things. And I'm just like, I will never tell you not to feel what you're feeling. If this is what today looks like, great. If you're feeling this for years and you don't want to fight for yourself, I might be like, hey, babe, I actually think you're bigger than this. Like, let's figure out what's really going on, because there's something happening here that makes you not want to move forward from this feeling, right? But it's not from a place of shame. It's not from a place of you should have done it differently or you're doing it wrong even, you know? And I think that, yeah, this conversation has always felt a little like tricky, because I don't ever want anyone to feel like their pain and their struggle with their health is not valid. It is.
No, it is valid. It is, yes, feel all of the emotions around it.
And then what are you going to do about it?
And then, yeah, the now what, right? What's that now what? What's that now what piece? I mean, the now what piece is obviously joining your community, because then you have, it sounds like you make people feel seen and heard and understood.
Yeah, we do.
In the community.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually bringing me to, I was also dealing with a bit of a health challenge earlier this year, and I found a mold strand. So I was dealing with mold or healing from mold. And one of the things that I had to be okay and sit with is, okay, all right, what does this mold have for me? Because it was causing me to have like these weird rashes that would never go away, and it was like brain fog, and I'm like, okay, let me push through, because I always push through, but who knows? It's been around for, I guess, a while maybe, and we were exposed in a couple of different places because I travel quite a bit. And then there was also parasites. So it was mold and parasites that we found because I started testing everything under the sun. And that journey for me of like, okay, I want to just like get rid of this fast.
Yep.
And they're like, no, sorry. Some people heal with this in the next like couple of years, or, you know, there are like other meds that you could take possibly. There's all kinds of things. So then you go into the different rabbit hole of like, all right, I need to go and fix it. Versus I feel like it's going through all the stages of grief of like the denial, and then you're angry, like, this is like stopping part of my day, and I'm just feeling all of these things. And it's been quite a journey, actually, at the time of this recording of this podcast, probably 8 months. And so I can totally resonate.
Yeah.
I mean, not obviously as deep,
no, but it's real.
It's real. And it's almost like, okay, because there were days where I just didn't want to do anything. And then you're kind of so low in your emotions, and you're like, what is going on? Oh, wait, that's why I was feeling really low, you know, or that's why I was doing those things, or that's why I was feeling super antisocial, and I'm like the biggest social butterfly ever. And yeah, I think that we don't necessarily think about it until we're actually affected with it. And it's easier to diminish somebody else's experience when you, or even not having that empathy for them because you've just never gone through something. So I totally empathize.
Yeah. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
I mean, it's,
Mold is
still
not easy. Yeah.
It's still in the mix, but yeah. We're trying, you know, it's like experimenting. But I think the thing with with what you're sharing is I had to kind of spiritually go in and say, okay, and literally talk to the mold.
Yeah.
I know. It sounds woo. It sounds crazy. It sounds like, what are you doing? But I literally had to be like, all right, what do you have for me?
Yeah.
And the thing that came up in this meditation, or I was just sitting, and it was like, all right, we've got to sit with us. There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to run. There's nothing to do. We can't do. We have to sit and acknowledge and be okay with this. And so that was like, that was like a turning point for me. Actually, you know, this is one of the first times I'm fully sharing and disclosing a lot of that, because I feel like, I mean, it's been, for somebody who, you're just like, you want to fix it. Yeah. And you want to get over it. Yeah.
It's so normal. I mean, I even feel that way, you know, with like, now I've been off of so many of the medications I had to start taking, but even like I still don't feel like I have my body, like full agency over my body in the ways that I want to every second of the day. And I'm like, okay, am I doing everything in this moment that I can to take care of myself? If the answer is yes, then like I gotta then give myself grace. I gotta journal. I gotta pray. I gotta do other things, and then also channel my feelings into service. I think that's been really healing for me because even when I feel like it's not enough or I'm not doing enough or, I haven't, accomplished enough, I'll go into the Chronicon community or I'll talk to somebody who's been connected to our work and I'll hear from them that it's really made an impact. And then I'm like, okay, like that one person, I'm sure you get that all the time with like this podcast and all the work that you're doing. It's like,
oh, sure.
So helpful.
Well, it validates everything that you're doing because
it makes it bigger than us, too.
I mean, and did you ever think that you would start something like this?
No.
Out of the alchemy of what you've been through?
No, I was doing the beauty thing. I was really excited to sell eye cream on QVC.
No way. Tell us more about that.
I mean,
you'd be great at QVC, actually.
I love QVC. But yeah, I was the host of my show, Naturally Beautiful, which was so many years ago now, but it was on Asia TV, and I loved doing it. That was why I had started my career in the first place, because I've always wanted to be a talk show host, and I still hope to get another show at some point in the future. I'm always putting that out into the universe.
Oh my gosh, that's so you.
Yeah, it's just like where I feel like I'm meant to be. But yeah, I got my first show a few years after starting my career, and no one was talking about chronic illness. I had never felt like ashamed of it. It wasn't that. It was more that I didn't understand like so many of these nuances that we're talking about today. I didn't understand how to talk about it without it being like a pity party. And like I never wanted it to be gratuitous, Right. And I was like, I don't know, something about this like just didn't feel right for a long time. And then on top of that, no one was really talking about like disease. They were all talking about like everyone should be well. So I was like, okay, I don't really know,
I don't know what angle to go
I don't know
here.
what angle.
Yeah.
Like nothing felt genuine, And then after a lot of years, I just was like, oh gosh, like I've had a pretty intense life and story and journey. I feel like I'm not, I love QVC, but I don't feel like I'm best suited to only be talking about this like one aspect of life, which is like beauty,
Right.
So it sort of pushed me to go inward and figure out what was that going to look like. And I remember thinking of the idea and was like, oh my God, my whole childhood, my whole life would have been different if I had a place like that to go to. So yeah, it sparked that idea.
Wow. And now what is this next season for Nitika?
This next season.
And before you answer that though, because coming from the South Asian background.
Yes.
And I can only imagine if you shared that in my household growing up. They would be like, stop.
Which part? All of it?
I mean, all of it. Like, I'm suffering from X, Y, and Z. I think I have X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
I can hear my Punjabi dad saying, nope, go study, you're fine. Or go put, Vicks over it, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Use coconut oil, everything will be better. Take some Tylenol.
Yeah.
Because that's so prevalent with our immigrant backgrounds and our immigrant parents, how was that with your family? What did you navigate through?
Yeah.
And where are you at today?
Yeah, I'm very close with my parents, but I will say like when I was growing up, there was just not a lot of education around these things. I got a skin disease, and so for most of my life, we all just thought it was just the skin. But psoriasis is an autoimmune disease. And so what was never really taken into account was like the extreme fatigue that I had, the extreme like brain fog. Also, I don't know if I would call myself neurodiverse. I don't really know how to know if I am that, but I definitely don't learn in like a linear way. I've always been a very, I don't know, like I need to see things like really in order to be able to grasp them and understand them. And then I get things like 1,000,000%. But I didn't know that growing up. I actually only learned that through becoming an entrepreneur and seeing like, wait, I'm smart. I just don't learn the way that like these everybody else
neurodivergent people are super smart.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know.
The majority of entrepreneurs are neurodivergent.
Okay, I'm like, I don't know what I am, but I'm definitely a little left of center, as we've discussed. And so, yeah, so I just feel like growing up, you know, my parents, my mom was like my nurse growing up. Like she was just anything that she could do. I mean, she used to have to change my sheets like every morning before going to school because I would bleed because I have my psoriasis. And she took me to any doctor, any healer, flew me around the world. Like she was just, yeah, she was it, you know. And she was really she has been always my best friend through all of it. And she's like the one person who just gets it on a level that no one will ever get it because she was there from the very beginning, you know. So there was that. But then there was this emotional component that was not understood. I had a lot of anger as a kid. I was furious. I was furious. And a lot of it was coming out in my skin.
Yeah, the heat.
The inflammation.
That's the portal of...
Yes,
exactly. Through Ayurveda, right? That's the pitta imbalances.
It was intense. So it was more those kinds of things. I also just... My mom's called me a pataki since I was 2 years old, which means firecracker in Hindi for all of you who don't know. And it's true. I call all my best girlfriends patakis because I feel like we're all patakis. But it's true. You know, just being that firecracker and never really taking no for an answer, never really...
When's your birthday?
I'm an April 11th.
Oh, yeah, of course, Aries. I was going to say, I'm like, are you real fire? Like Aries fire?
Yeah, I'm fire.
Okay.
But, you know, and then also wanting to always get to the truth of everything, which is not really typical in South Asian conversations. Right. I feel like we'll all be sitting around with aunties and uncles and everyone.
Shoving things under the rug.
Just be like, no, like, you know, and I'm just like, Auntie, why would you say that? You know, or like, oh, I noticed this uncle is drinking more than you should. Or like just things like that my parents would be like, Nitika, what are you doing? But I think now everybody kind of has accepted me a lot more over the years. But people always, especially South Asian women, ask me that a lot, like just about navigating the nuances of family dynamics in that way. And you really have to care more about the truth than you do about what other people think.
That's the big one.
It's the one.
That's our big shadow collectively as a culture.
Yes.
Yeah. What will people think?
And it won't always be easy. You know, I've gotten into some knockdown fights with not in a long time, but at the kind of heart or the peak moments, I've gotten into some huge fights with people in my family because they're living in a paradigm that they want to keep living in. And I'm just like, that's not the truth. Mm-hmm. So like
Or why are you telling people what you have? Why are you splaying it for the world to see?
Oh, yeah. We have that too, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then how do you own your voice if you are being gaslit? How do you advocate for yourself?
Yeah.
For those who are listening to this or watching this on YouTube and they're getting inspired by your journey, your story, but they don't know how to really, speak their truth or honor their truth or own their voice.
Yeah. It honestly really starts with that personal relationship, that relationship that you have with yourself. So for me, it has been through journaling, through prayer, through journaling things like, what do I love about myself? What are things that I'm proud of that I've done? It sounds so simple, and it is. But when was the last time someone actually took the time to love themselves? Love is a verb. Actively love yourself. And say, so that means when you go to that person and they say, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm not going to listen to you. You're just a kid, or you're just a girl, or whatever it might be. Yeah. You know yourself. And you can say, I hear you and see that you think this about me, but I actually know who I am. And that is, first of all, it's priceless, but it's something that people will try to take from you your entire life, and it is your job to not let them. And it's not that that's easy, right? It is a daily thing. While I'm exploring dating. I haven't dated in a long time, and I'm like starting to dip my toe into dating again, right? And I'm like, okay, every time I meet somebody and they want to tell me who I am, they want to tell me what they see in me because it makes them feel a certain way, I have to sit and remember, who am I? I have to show up in my body, in my truth. And it doesn't actually matter what the other person is saying or doing until it does, right? Until you build rapport, you build intimacy, you build trust. And that goes for a doctor relationship. Like I have a new neurologist that I have built a relationship with over the last year. The first couple of appointments, I had my guard up, you know, and I wasn't like just doing that whole white coat thing where I just believe everything he says. Like I had lots of notes. I had come prepared, but now we have a little bit more of a rapport. Now I feel like, okay, I've seen he's trustworthy. He'll listen to me. He has a certain rhythm that I can follow, that we can be in sync together. But that's my job, right? I have to show up. No one else's job. It's not anyone else's job to make me feel safe or cared for, actually.
Right.
And I think that sometimes we're in a society where we put that on other people.
Totally.
And yes, if you and I are best friends and close friends, we have an understanding that we are going to do that for each other, right? And there's care there, and there is built-in trust through time. But that doesn't happen the first time that we meet. That doesn't happen like after even maybe the fifth time that we meet. It happens over much, like many, many times of us meeting. Right? And so I think that's, again, going back to that agency. How are you going to show up? Yes, okay, you know that when you go to the next Diwali party, there's going to be people, there's going to be aunties like, oh, you wore this color today? Like whatever, like they're going to be like looking at your outfit or saying you've got too much cleavage. I like always have too much cleavage. And like, you know, they're going to say, oh, you wore your hair curly, you didn't wear your hair straight, you wore this, you wore that. Okay. And I'm going to be like, yeah, I love my curly hair. It's straight today because I got it blow dried last week. But like, you know, it's like knowing yourself.
Right.
It's not anyone else's job to tell you that you're okay.
Amid all of the comments.
I
say like the comments are, they're complimentary. They're going to happen. So you take it or leave it.
Yeah.
You know, we just had an event to celebrate my brother this weekend, and lots of family and lots of comments.
Yeah.
And you just, they're complimentary. they're free. You know, you honor it. And I think the other thing that it's reminding me of as you're sharing this is people are going to have their own perceptions, their own perspectives.
Yeah.
And they're entitled to have their own perceptions and their perspectives, but you still have your own.
Yeah.
And yours should be probably the only one that matters.
Yeah.
Like they'll still have that experience of you no matter what.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that you can do to change or alter or persuade them otherwise, because they will still have that experience of you.
And we don't always realize that like that's based on thousands of things. It's based on their past relationships, their past trauma, maybe their issues with their own body, maybe their insecurities, their nervous systems, right? So
whether or not they ate earlier that day, if they're hangry, if they were running late, if they had a fight with their significant other that triggered something that's now you're triggering them. And so then they're having an experience and it just keeps going.
Yeah, it's so layered. And so I think it would just make a lot of us more happy if we just focused on what is our part in all of this. And I think the thing that's coming up for me now is also talking about boundaries, because people are, you know, that's such a buzzword. And I know people are really obsessed with boundaries, and I'm a boundaries queen. I love a boundary, but a boundary is for me. And I think Brene Brown, I think, talks about that a lot. Like people think it's for you, right? It's for the other person. No, it's for me. It's how I show people how they can treat me, right? I don't need to go around telling everybody what my boundaries are. I need to own my own boundaries. I need to walk into spaces and situations owning what I will take and what I am worthy of, right? And so when we talk about how do we advocate for ourselves, how do we do all of these things, how do we change conversations, it starts with our own relationship with ourselves. And I know that's such a boring thing to say sometimes. I know, I wish it was more exciting. I really do. I wish I was like, here are the 3 things that you never heard of before. And it's like this little magic pill. No, it is like every day when I'm feeling tender, when I'm feeling like I'm confused about a situation, instead of grasping for something on the outside, I sit with my journal. I pray. I love Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now.
Oh, he's amazing.
He's amazing. And honestly, I wasn't ready for his book years ago, but I have been listening to it over and over and over again because it's got so much wisdom, right? And talks so much about being in this present moment, right? Being here with you, being in your energy, being in this beautiful space, right? And like that is the only thing that matters. But it's up to me to be aware of that. You could be in your beautiful energy and want that for me so bad. But if I am off in the clouds, if I'm doing my own thing, it's not going to make a difference.
And if you're not ready for it too.
I'm not ready for it.
And I think that's the biggest thing, right? You know, everyone has their own time frame and their own energy. I feel like we were connected many, many years ago, but I feel like this was the right timing.
Perfect timing.
This is the right timing. So before we get into our final segment where we spill the chai, where I know you have a freebie for our audience.
Yes.
So how can we continue this journey of really just owning our own self-love and deepening because what I'm also hearing is that self-trust, that the boundaries come after we form our, radical self-trust within ourselves.
Yeah. So I do have a self-love guide for those who have psoriasis, but honestly, even if you don't have psoriasis, just download it. It'll be like nurturing and loving and supportive for you no matter what. The journey is download the free guide.
We'll put it in the show notes, by the way.
Okay, great. So so get the freebie. And then, of course, we've got our Instagram at Chronicon Official, my Instagram at Nitika Chopra. And then we also have the app, which is like my favorite thing.
It's huge.
Honestly, it's so beautiful. The people are so kind. And it really is about giving people those tools to have that agency and feel supported like through and through. I also do group coaching in there every month now.
Oh, wow.
We have
amazing.
nervous system work that we do. My nervous system coach actually comes in and does a session for everybody every month.
Good.
So it's a really high value. And it's awesome. So you can get it from anywhere. And then we're actually, I haven't said this to anyone yet.
Oh my
goodness.
goodness.
Say this I have barely said it to myself.
Spill the chai.
I'm gonna, as we go into our Spill the Chai segment, we were gonna do a big conference here in New York in the fall, but I think I've decided to go on tour instead.
Yes.
Ooh. I think I want to do, it's almost like bringing the panels to the audience.
Oh, I love that.
So we have people all over the country, all over the world. And not everybody can fly to New York, and it's also only one day, so this kind of feels like exciting to switch up the energy
Chronicon tour.
Chronicon tour. So I think that's going to happen in October this year. So definitely follow us and stay tuned for those
Oh my
details.
gosh. Well, hopefully you come to Austin.
Oh my God, I would love to.
That would be amazing.
We should add that to the list.
Add Austin to the list.
Let's do it.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Spilling the chai. Are you a matcha girl, herbal tea, or masala chai?
Can I say I'm an oat milk latte girl?
Okay. Oat milk latte.
Or if I
None
had,
of the above.
If I had to choose, I guess I would say masala chai. But
all right. Thank you.
I'm mostly an oat milk latte girl.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Sorry. Is that bad?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
That's great. That's great. Favorite place to venture off to for your own self-care?
Oh, wow.
It could be a place. It could be a place in your house.
Yeah. I live in Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
Oh, fun.
It's so cute over
so
there.
fun.
Everyone is so cute.
Yeah,
I'm just everyone is cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even know if I'm cool enough to live here, but I live here. And I love it. So I'm a big like window shopper person.
So vibey over there.
So vibey. I love to go to like a stationery store.
Of course you do.
It's so silly. But just to like look at beautiful things, or like a jewelry store or something. I love jewelry. Like, Indian
window,
woman,
window
just,
shopping,
like, window shopping
is great.
It's not
like
even
retail therapy, but not.
Yeah, it's like I don't even need to buy anything, but just going
looking.
in, learning like the stories of where things come from, and like I'm real nerdy like that.
What is your definition of being brave in this season and stage of life?
In this season of life, I think it's really like stepping into my power as a woman, that I I've shied away from at times. I think I've harnessed my own power privately, right? And maybe people would think I've done that publicly, but I know that there's still so much more to say and own and teach. And I've sort of shied away from some of that. For a lot of the reasons that we talked about today, like just those nuances of never wanting anyone to feel like their experience isn't validated, and also knowing that there's some deeper layers that we have to get to. Just being like, okay, what, like, I don't know. It's easier to say that to like my 4 best friends that I'm like, I know that they're going to love what I'm saying, you know, but to say it publicly and be like, hey, I don't know your story, but I also trust that there's probably more there that we haven't explored yet. And I'd love to do that with you, you know? That's a whoa thing.
Sounds juicy. Sounds juicy to me.
It's juicy.
Okay, one word that describes this season.
Reclamation.
Oh, that's good. All right, Nitika, this was such an honor to hear your wisdom, your strength. I love how you are just reclaiming you in this era, and I'm so excited that people get to learn from you. So thank you for pouring your wisdom today with us, and we will put all the ways that people can follow you in the show notes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. You're such a beautiful interviewer.
Oh,
I really enjoyed this conversation.
Oh, so did I. Well, we'll have to have you back.
Anytime.
Part 2. Until next time on the Brave Table.
You have such good energy.
Oh my gosh, you too, friend. You too. I feel like I've been following you and your journey for a while. And so it's like very surreal that we're just sitting here in New York City. And if you're watching this on YouTube, the verdict is out. I asked her if she was related to Priyanka Chopra. I mean, if it's too early to share.
No, I feel like that'll like warm us up for the conversation. It's like perfect, you know? Yeah, you can tell them.
Okay, so because I'm like, wait, is she related?
No, I'm not.
Because Brave Table Fam, I mean, it's her the bottom portion of her face. Okay.
Now everyone's going to be looking at the bottom portion of my face. No.
Well, you are stunning. You are gorgeous. And I feel like, so who do you get?
I do get Priyanka a lot, but I think it's just because we have the same last name. I swear.
No.
I don't know. I've looked at her. I mean, she is flawless. So obviously I've like looked at, like literally I've had people who have worked with me on style in the past. And I've been like, I just want to look like everything she's wearing. I love her style. I love what she does. But yeah, I don't think I look anything like her.
Really?
I really don't. Her lips are like 3 times the size of mine.
I mean, no, there's something there. Or you get Selena Gomez a lot.
I do get Selena,
which I
really
can see
think
that.
it's just because we have the chronic illnesses. I really don't understand. I mean, I am honored and flattered, but I just don't see it. But sure, I'll take it.
Oh
I'll
my
take
goodness.
it. Absolutely.